Isn't it nice to look forward to next season with a big smile on your face, with a bit of positivity as a Manchester United fan? We have got Mason Mount in the bag. Andre Onana, that deal looks like it's going to be done, well, next week. I was hoping it was going to be this weekend, but hey, I can wait. As long as he's on the pre-season tour, that's good. And Rasmus Hojlund will be next. What will Manchester United's starting 11 and squad look like? If we make those three signings, what are the strengths that they bring and what are the weaknesses that still exist in the squad? That's what I'm going to run through in this video. I'm really going to enjoy this one. I've done a couple of these so far, taking a look at potential new signings, but I think these three are lining up to be Man United's three major signings. We might make some more, but I think these are going to be the three signings that really change our starting 11. So let me run through the video. Let me know what you think in the comments and drop a like on the video, ladies and gents. It makes a big, big difference. What we're going to do in this video is take a look at the tactics board, take a look at the squad and the squad strength, and we're going to discuss each signing. And there's only one to start with, the one that we have completed already. Mason Mount is... I promise I'm not just doing this to hype him up. I genuinely think he's... It feels like the sort of signing that maybe isn't the sexiest, maybe isn't the first name you go to in that position, but I feel like it's a profiled system signing for Ten Hag. And I think that's the exact sort of signings we've got to make. Now, you might say, Sam, we shouldn't be signing just whoever the manager wants, because what happens when they leave? What happens when Ten Hag leaves is United find another version of Ten Hag, and we build an identity that plays the same style of football, so we shouldn't go through huge transitions. Now, Mason Mount comes into this team, right? Let's go to the tactics board now. And I think, as I've said, and I still will cover in a video comparing our starting 11, how I think it's going to shape up next season, compared to last season and the differences, but I think we'll switch to Casemiro as the one holding number 6, and we'll play Bruno and Mount as two number 8s. I really think that Bruno and Mount are really going to enjoy playing with each other, because we can now operate in a similar way on both wings. Last season, right? Let me go there. Last season, when you had this, say that was Christian Eriksen for all intents and purposes, Bruno was in this position, pressing, sort of trying to cover all the ground here on his own effectively. Now, we can work in zones. So we can have Mount and Rashford on that side. We can have Bruno and Anthony on that side. Obviously supplemented by Wan-Bissaka, supplemented by Shaw. We'll be able to do the same thing on both wings. I think Mount is a sort of signing that's going to make everybody else around him play better. Defensively, he's obviously going to add a lot. I think that's what I mean. Like, from a system perspective, I think we're going to see a lot more of Ten Hag's actual system, the aggressive front press, winning the ball back higher, the sorts of overloads that he really wants United to, because you know what Ten Hag does. We always get one fullback forward, the other fullback will drop into a 3, and then United then have overloads because we get the inverted foot lane. I won't get to the ins and outs of that, because that's a separate video unto itself. But Mason Mount, for me, is going to make such a big difference here. I think he's going to really have a good partnership with Shaw, and in particular, Marcus Rashford. I'm looking forward to seeing how that works on the left. Mason Mount and Garnacho, of course, as well, when he comes in. I can't really see a weakness to his signing. I'm not saying he's going to be that like a 100 out of 10 player. That's a stupid thing to say. He's not going to be the... Just wait and see, is what I'm going to say about Mason Mount. But I think from a system perspective in that starting 11, I think he adds a lot of strength. Now, if we're taking a look at this board here, who are we going to put down as the backup to Mason Mount? Because at this moment in time, there isn't really somebody inside that squad that I could confidently say is going to be that player. I think on paper right now, it's Fred, right? But I don't know whether Fred's going to be here next season. It's an interesting one. I think if we're looking at the next signing, I'll move on to Onana next, and there's a whole conversation around him. In terms of Casemiro and the alternative to him, I mean, you could go Mainoo or you can go McTominay. You'd probably go McTominay, but McTominay's not really number 6. And I don't know whether... I can't have any confidence that Fred's going to be here next year or McTominay's going to be here next year. And that's why I've gone Kobbie Mainoo there as an alternative to Casemiro, because it looks like at this moment in time, it could be him. But we'll find out about that. In terms of... there's a lot more weaknesses and strengths I'm going to go through. All right? Don't worry about that. But let's move on to Onana. Onana. Oh, no, I didn't do it. Let me just fix that. I ruined it. 1 second. Where were we? That didn't happen. Oh, man. I know it feels like I'm overhyping this signing, but I'm not. Like, it's going to be transformative. From a tactical perspective, from a positional perspective, all you need to understand is this. David De Gea's average, probably average position. I'm saying probably because it probably is. He's stuck on his line, on his 6-yard line. Bring that up 12 yards. What happens? Martinez steps up 12 yards. Varane steps up 12 yards. Wan-Bissaka does. Shaw does. Casemiro does. And all of a sudden, the average positions for Manchester United's team, as you can see, squeeze up the pitch. They make the pitch smaller because all of a sudden, we're cutting this out. That's dead space. That's space that we control, but space that isn't threatening us. And by doing that, Manchester United will be able to exert the Ten Hag style of football so much better. I'm going to do an in-depth tactical video on Onana and speak about all the different assets and strengths that he's got, from his, ability under pressure to his distribution to his cross collect. I'm going to cover all of that, and also shot stopping and any sort of weaknesses he's got inside his game. But he is the key to unlocking this Ten Hag V2, I'm calling it. V1 was last season. Massive progress from Rangnick. Still, a lot more progress to be made. It's the Spurs game blueprint. And this higher up the pitch defensive line and positions from everybody else is what would allow that sort of game against Spurs to happen on a more regular basis. That's the biggest strength it would have. Now, if you go to the board here and you say, right, who's going to be Onana's backup? I've got no idea. At this moment, I'm not even sure if this is going to have Suzuki in as an option. Which one is him? No, his name's Zion, isn't it? It's not there. So at this moment in time, right, I know this is going to change. Tom Heaton is the backup. Dean Henderson's going to be sold to Nottingham Forest. There's no way that he stays. In terms of weaknesses, I would probably highlight this as a weakness inside this squad. I'm not saying Varane's a weakness, but an injury to Varane, and I've got questions about this current squad. You probably throw Lindelof in there. Lindelof's pretty much the only backup that we've got that we can rely on for both Martinez and Varane, because I think Maguire's going to be sold. And that's why I don't really want to put Maguire there. I'm going to at this moment in time, but Maguire, for me, that's a weakness inside this 11. So as much as there's strengths that are coming between Onana, Mount and Hojlund, if they all three get signed, there's still weaknesses inside this squad. And let's move on to this man, because I think this one's probably got the most question marks around it. Not in a negative sense, but we're looking at a 20-year-old who's just broken into Atalanta's first team. I think he scored like 8-9 goals in Serie A last season. He's raw. He's a bit like, in terms of his stage of his development, he's basically like Haaland when he was at Salzburg, before Haaland went to Dortmund. And of course, I'm not saying that he's going to be, but that's obviously what he's going to be compared to, because he's a big physical specimen. He's got power, he's got pace. But in the Atalanta system last season, they played with wing-backs. And Hojlund didn't really operate as like an out-and-out number 9. If you look at his average position, I think his average position was probably around about where Bruno is. So he's kind of used to, instead of playing as the aggressive front, as the aggressive number 9, he kind of tends to drop deep a little bit. And maybe that will work out. Maybe that's the sort of front three that we're going to have. Instead of having Hojlund leading the line, being there in front of everybody, Hojlund maybe will drop a little bit deeper. Maybe pass it out to Anthony or Rashford, then run on the edge of the box. Maybe it's a different sort of style. But that's kind of how he's played at Atalanta. So I'm intrigued to see what happens there. But of course, you can see here, right? I'm going to go for the sub for Anthony. I'm going to put Jadon Sancho there, right? Because I've got Garnacho down on the left wing, obviously. It's Rashford and Garnacho on that left wing. Jadon Sancho is going to have to go toe-to-toe with Ahmad and Pellistri for that spot. I would expect Pellistri to be loaned out. I think he'll probably sign a new deal and then get loaned out for a season. And if I'm being completely honest, there are very, very few players in the professional game that ever get more than one loan spell from their club and then come back to that parent club and then nail it. I think for some reason, Ten Hag hasn't given him those opportunities yet. And of course, you've got Ahmad, who's going to be coming back, and he had a storming season at Sunderland. Didn't really play too much as a proper out-and-out right-winger, but it'll be interesting to see where he comes in. But the point here is, right, Hojlund, who am I putting down as his alternative? As it stands, Anthony Martial. So I'm looking at that's a weak part of that squad. If Hojlund comes in and he gets injured, we're back to where we were before, right? But if that team stays fit, I don't know, which it won't across the course of the season, there will be games where we don't. I mean, we hardly really had our starting 11 fit last season. Remember, Ten Hag, I think it was after the Arsenal game, was saying, look, we've only had our starting 11 fit and available for like 1 or 2 games. Look at Arsenal. And then we've now gone and signed Arsenal's like chief medical. Man, that's funny. I could cover that in a separate video. But in this 11, new strengths, obvious. I think all 3 of Hojlund, Mount and Onana really take this team up a couple of levels. We're going to play with a much more aggressive front press. We're going to play a lot more possession, right? That's one thing you can watch United next season. We should be able to knock the ball around a bit instead of playing hot potato. We haven't been able to do that for a while. And we'll play a much higher defensive line. We should be able to soak up pressure. Against Liverpool and City, we should be able to play through a press next season. Maybe not perfectly, but certainly better than we did last year. However, there are weaknesses inside this squad. I would personally say that Varane's backup, I would have concerns and question marks. As it stands, look, Kobbie Mainoo might really, really surprise and impress me. I mean, no, he will impress me. I just don't know whether he's going to be a Casemiro understudy. But maybe he's going to be that inside this squad. Because I think this next season is his breakthrough season. That's a weakness. That's a weakness. And I would say the fact that all our eggs are in the Hojlund basket. Because we can't afford to get 2 strikers. I think in a dream world, Ten Hag would probably be able to shift Martial out. But again, it's probably a wage issue. Same issue with Maguire. Same issue with a lot of these United players. Stupid contracts that we gave out. But all 3 of them, Mount, Onana, and Hojlund, take this team up a couple of notches. Do you think that team there, if they stay fit and they gel, is that capable of challenging? Now, we may well fall short. The expectation is not to win the Premier League next season. It's to be in the conversation come the start of May. Then I think that's the aim. Do you think this team can do it? And what do you think they'll do in the Champions League? And where do you think the weaknesses are? Have a cracking weekend. I hope you enjoyed that one. I did. Those 3 signings, let me know what you think.